All right. Oh, sorry. Here we go.
Oh, there we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our lifestyle medicine class for this week. This week we have Dr. Padmaja Patel. She is our medical director here at the Lifestyle Medicine Center, and she is going to be answering some questions that you guys have sent in to us. So let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to start with, can I increase my fruit, vegetable, and whole grain intake, but keep eating lean protein?
Thank you, Jillian. I'm really glad to join your group today and to be able to answer some of the common questions that come along. So this is a very good question. Can we just add more fruits, vegetables, and grains, whole grains, while continuing to eat lean protein? And I wanted to share something here that kind of really helps us understand why it is important to talk about the lean protein, even though a lot of times we think the lean protein is very healthy, and it's really, so it's important to recognize the saturated fats, even in some of the meat that we consider to be healthy. So talk about chicken and fish here. Not only the fat calories that come from here, if you look at the chicken versus the salmon here, look at the amount of calories from the fat that's coming up. Cholesterol is also an issue. And so really the essence of weight loss prescription is about understanding calorie density. And if you are really trying to accomplish weight loss, then you really need to eat food which is low in calorie but high in nutrition, fiber, antioxidants, and phytonutrients. So that's why minimizing all animal products is really what we would recommend to really get the most out of your efforts here. I also wanted to kind of show you this another, okay, anyway, let's go to the next question.
Okay. So the next question is, I'm cutting out oils and I'm eating whole food plant-based, but why am I not losing weight?
Yes. So a lot of times I think it has to do with, does your diet look like this? Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's important to recognize, what do we call whole grains? Is it really the intact grains? A lot of times we still end up eating a lot of processed and packaged items. Sometimes oil, which is trickling into those packaged and processed food that we may not recognize. Same thing with sugar, which kind of adds into a lot of processed and packaged. So when we talk about whole foods, we really talk about food in its most original form and shape, including intact grains and your plant proteins added to it. So then look at some of the areas. So for example, what are the fat sources that could be coming into your diet that you may not recognize, right? So there are plant fats, for example, nuts and avocados, and these are all healthy fat, but when we eat too much of that, so that could add to the could hindrance to your weight loss progress. So I think again it comes down to calories, and calories, they are not equal, and we need to really recognize that the calories and the low fat food that comes from plant sources could really the one that could help with your weight loss progress.
Great. So our next question is an interesting one, and I kind of would like for you to answer it. Oh, are you still going? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so one more thing I wanted to talk about the oil. I think some people still talk about, how about olive oil, or some of the healthy, supposedly healthy oil which has been marketed all over. And so think about 130 calories in 1 tablespoon of that calorie of oil. In addition, there is a concern about endothelial dysfunction from oil. And then in addition, we know that the oils are inflammatory, so kind of adds to the inflammation in the body. So I think there are many reasons we keep focusing on food that's whole food plant-based, but really avoiding all oils and including olive oil.
Of course, I know that's a big question that we get a lot of times is, can I still eat olive oil? I've heard olive oil is healthy for me, so I think it's good to clear that up.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next question is an interesting one, and I'd kind of like you to answer it with two things in mind, just so that we cover more basis with weight loss in mind, as well as prevention of chronic disease or treatment of chronic disease. So this one is, which is better for me? Eating a vegan diet with frequent oils and processed foods, or eating a mostly whole food plant-based diet, but still including some lean protein?
Okay. So in general, vegan diets with a lot of some of the processed item or junk food that's still available out there, I think it's actually the most unhealthy version of diet. So I really think that whether we talk about weight loss or whether we talk about prevention of chronic diseases, I think it's worse in both ways. Now, if you're healthy and your weight is ideal, and if you don't have any chronic conditions to reverse, if you're eating predominantly whole food plant-based and adding lean protein here and there, it's not a big deal. So it really comes down to the perspective of what exactly you're trying to accomplish and where you are on the journey or the spectrum of your health. So I think for weight loss or for chronic diseases, vegan diet, which a lot of processed items included, is really bad.
Great. And then the next question is just a general, why should I avoid processed foods? So I guess explain what is in these processed foods that makes them so bad.
Right. And I think one of the biggest culprits in the processed food is obviously lots of sugar, salt, and fat, which is added. And then this sugar is a lot of times used as a preservative in the sense, all kinds of syrup, high fructose corn syrup and rice syrup and whatnot. But it adds to a lot of added sugar part and calories. So that's what I wanted to show here in the slide. In addition, talk about processing of the food. What happens? You're stripping away nutrition. When you start to process anything, you're stripping away nutrition. You're really refining that product to the point that glycemic index goes up, which means you eat that processed item right away, blood sugar in your body will go up. So in addition to stripping away all the nutrition, added items to the refined products, and let me show you, I have one more really good slide to show about the processed item that kind of really makes, yes. So this is what happens to all the food that we buy from the grocery store, right? So added fat, sugar, and food additives, and that really adds to the fat, calories, sugar, and stripping away all the nutrients. So that's why we want to really stay away from it. If you look at the studies, there is a long-term data showing that just having a lot of processed carbohydrate could really increase all-cause mortality as well as some of the cancers. So it's really why we want to stay away from, and especially if you're on a weight loss journey, you really want to eliminate all forms of processed items.
Great information. Okay, so this next question actually comes from one of our patients' family members that asked one of our patients this question, and so I thought it would be good to cover. This person said that they came off of all of their medications and lost 50 pounds doing the keto diet. So how can you say this isn't good for me?
Yeah, and it's very popular. So, right, a lot of people are on keto diet because there's a very quick weight loss that you see. So these are the problems. There are some short-term gains with this type of diet, high protein and low carb diet, but there is a concern with elevated cholesterol. There is a concern with the kidney disease, risk of cancer. There's a bone loss, especially calcium out of your bones, so it increases your risk for osteoporosis. And then in the long term, it causes insulin resistance, in addition to endothelial injury, which is the inside of your arteries, which can cause some atherosclerosis or plaque buildup. And then it obviously completely disrupts your gut microbiome. And the studies have shown that people who eat low carb diet, they have 31% higher all-cause mortality. And so what did these people die from? They had 14% higher mortality from heart disease and 28% increased risk from cancer. So this popular diet, is yes, short term. You may lose weight, but that's usually is from the losing muscle mass as well as losing fluid from your body. You do not lose fat when you're really on a keto diet. So really, there's no long-term data to show that these are beneficial. It may be just a short-term gain, but I think there's a long-term concerns. Which is why we really would not recommend this type of approach.
Great. There's some useful information for somebody's next family debate. Okay, so the next question is, how long will it be before I start seeing the benefits? And I'm assuming that they mean both weight loss and overall health improvement.
Right, and I think there is no sort of one size fits all approach here, where everyone's journey is different. Everyone starts at a different point in their health. Everyone might, have a different spectrum of diseases or comorbid conditions. So I think this is a sort of a journey, right? We don't call this a diet, right? So that's the difference between looking this as a lifestyle and not necessarily some kind of a diet that you just get on it for a short period of time, you reach your goal and you come off of it. So I think the difference is to really look at this mindset as that this is the healthy way to eat, and this is how we will live our lives moving forward. So I think as you stay on it and keep refining your diet and sort of get to more closer to the prescription of whole food plant-based diet and eliminating all oils, I think you get the most benefit. So it really depends on how much effort you are putting into and how close you are to that ultimate description of what we would like for you to do.
The next question is, how can I build muscle if I'm not eating protein?
So you mean to say on plant-based diet, we're not eating protein?
I guess so.
Okay, so that's why this is a good slide I wanted to show. It's just the difference of plant protein versus animal protein. So a lot of times people just don't realize that there's plenty of protein in plant-based foods, right? So beans, lentils, and nuts and whole grains, including all the greens that you eat. They're all fantastic sources of protein without added any disadvantage that you normally see from animal sources of protein. So if you look at these, say, for example, red lentils, right? 1 cup of boiled has like about 18 grams of protein. Edamame, black beans, a cup would be like 15 grams. So forth. In addition, so you not only get plenty of protein, but here are the advantages that come with the plant protein. There's fiber into it. There are phytonutrients in there, vitamins and minerals. Also, there's a lower healthy fat profile, and obviously there's no cholesterol in plant protein. Whereas animal protein, you look at the egg, which has only got 6 grams, which don't most people think that that's the best source of protein? Mm-hmm. And also a high source of cholesterol. So look at the amount of protein, but then what happens? There are cholesterol, saturated fat, there's zero fiber, absolutely, right, in animal protein, and they're higher in calories. So this is why we need to recognize that as long as we eat the variety of food from plant sources of food, we don't have to worry about the protein content or the amount. And let me show here one more is how much protein one needs, right? Because a lot of time people wonder, what is it that we need? About 56 grams for adult male and 46 grams for adult woman. But unfortunately,
diet plans that recommend eating your body weight in grams of protein, which is crazy to think about, getting over 100 grams of protein a day.
Right, and an average, I would say here, yeah. So here is a good shows I want to say how much protein average person eats, right? So based on your weight, here is, so if you're 125, so 175, 225, just look at the estimated amount that you need. But think about how much average American actually eats. It's almost 2 to 3 times the daily requirement of protein that people consume. And a lot of health problems are partly because of that excess protein that the body has to continue to digest.
Of course. Okay, so how can I lose weight while eating pasta and potatoes? I assume this comes from that kind of carb-phobic diet culture that's been created in our population today.
Right. So I think what we need to recognize is that how much pasta are we eating? Even in the pasta, I would say we focus on whole grains. Also, I would say my pasta would be sort of added with lots of greens, lots of beans. So it's not just the only pasta that you're eating. There's still lots of variety of protein and your greens that's included in it. So potato, again, has a very bad reputation. And I think by itself, potato is not bad. What we do with potato, say for example, you bake it and you put a sour cream and a butter and a cheese and bacon. And so yes, then that potato becomes really terrible because it has all the bad things in it. But by itself, potato is really not a huge concern. And so carb in general is, as long as carbs are coming from whole grains, so carbs are coming from whole foods, are really consistently protective. So we really don't worry about by itself. It's like, what do we do with that? And how much balanced your overall diet is, really, that matters.
Great information. Okay, so this one is actually about heart disease. And so this question is, how does eating plant-based heal heart disease?
Yeah, and so this is very interesting because remember, we have offered an Orange program for reversing heart disease here back 3 years ago, and now we have another cardiac rehab program, Pratikin program, that we offer for all heart patients. And the focus of these programs is really about reversing heart disease. And how does that happen? Is as they patients make lifestyle changes, what happens? So just by adding more plant-based diet in their routine, the first thing that happens is that they will have healthy endothelial cells, which is the innermost lining inside the blood vessel. So which is where the atherosclerosis or plaque will start building up with the inflammation. So that's a good thing to know, that your plaque will start getting smaller or improve blockages. In addition, when you eat plant-based diet, your body's making more nitric oxide. What does that do? Well, it will dilate your blood vessels. So patients with heart disease often have what we call as angina or chest pain on exertion. So when they start eating whole food plant-based diet, they will have more nitric oxide, their blood vessels are dilated, they will not have any more chest pain. So that's a really early symptom that we see often gets resolved, is elimination of angina. And then the blockages a lot of times open up just by eating healthier and adopting some of the healthy lifestyle, which is obviously adding exercise, sleeping adequately, managing your stress better, and avoiding the toxic substances like smoking, as well as tobacco. And then often we've seen that these patients can actually avoid future procedures like stent or bypass just because their arteries are much healthier. And then there is this another huge advantage that happens is that when we change diet, we really change the gut microbiome, which means people who eat plant-based diet, they have a different set of gut bacteria, much more healthier. And so they don't produce this chemical substance, TMAO, which is usually produced by gut bacteria of people eating more standard American diet with lots of heavy animal products. So there is another huge advantage in terms of atherosclerosis. So yes, these are really all very valuable advantage, but then things that we have seen in patients, not only they lose weight, their blood pressure improves, their cholesterol improves, and all other comorbid conditions, including diabetes, kind of goes hand in hand with heart disease patients. So I think it's this overall well-being and quality of life which improves just by making these dietary changes and lifestyle changes.
Is it safe for my child to eat a plant-based diet?
Yes, so I'm not a pediatrician, so I don't want to answer that question, but yes, I think you definitely want to ask a pediatrician. We have several in our community, including Dr. Borbowski, that is on our board at the Healthy City nonprofit. Yes, there are lots of pediatricians locally as well as nationally who are supporting and encouraging children to adopt to plant-based diet for their healthy growth and really avoiding some of the chronic conditions early on.
The next question is, are plant-based protein shakes okay to drink?
So I believe in whole foods. I believe that even the protein should come from its most original form and shape. So I'm not a fan of anything that's extracted and sort of taken out of the original form shape of food, and then now it's product that's something you just buy from a shelf and add it in your water or milk or whatever. So I think try to look for protein in its most original form, because there are all these added advantage that we just talked about early on, with the fiber, phytonutrients, the vitamins and minerals and all these things in its most original form and shape, which gets absorbed easily. So I think there are definite advantage of going to the right source.
This person says, I can't give up eggs. Is it okay to keep eating these if I change everything else?
So eggs, why we think eggs really not healthy, apart from obviously, you know, it's still an animal product. It has the concern with the IGF, the insulin-like growth factor, and there is a concern with some of the cancers. But here is another big culprit that we worry about is the cholesterol, right? So one egg has about 160 to 170 grams of cholesterol in it. So I often show this slide to my patients and kind of ask them, are you on a cholesterol lowering medication? Are you, is your cholesterol higher? And if these are the items that you're still consuming, we're just kind of defeating the purpose of taking or fixing the health problem. So there are many concerns with cholesterol, and I would definitely encourage. So what is it that why we can't give up? I think a lot of times we just not think that what is it that I can add instead, right? So you probably haven't figured that out. And so if it's the omelet or if it's a different preparation, there are still really good versions of soy products and tofu that you can really use to create a similar taste and flavor, so that you don't miss, but then you have added health advantage there. So I would say concern is huge with cholesterol, in addition to insulin-like growth factor. And that's why I think it's probably not the ideal thing to continue.
do you suggest gradually changing to a plant-based diet or doing it abruptly?
Yeah, and I think it's very individual. I really go by what works for a person. And it also depends on your personality. For example, there are some people who like to just get on 100% right away. And that's the only way they can make a change. Well, there are some people who prefer a slow pace approach, and I think they both are great. We really don't think there is one size fits all here. So I think wherever, however you make a change, that matters. So at the end of the day, it's really not the perfection, but it's the progress that matters. So no matter where you are, as we continue to refine and improve, that's really what we want to focus on, is the journey. And so not getting discouraged or disappointed just because you can't get on it from day one. It's really not required.
Great. So what are some of your favorite convenience products?
Yeah, convenient. So I really look at food and I think lately I've been adding lots of items more in greens. I think in last 6 months or so, I've kind of added 3 times a day in my morning smoothie, my lunch, and dinner. What are the things that I can easily get from the grocery store and eat it just like that? So I think the fruits, vegetables, greens, as well as some of the items which are still, say, processed or packaged, that are easily available, which are some of the frozen or easy cooled bread or tortillas or things like that. Some of the hummus, so there are healthy versions of hummus which are Oasis brand, which are oil-free. That's available, so you can always get there. Then there are crackers, which are, say, American crackers, which are healthy versions of it. It only has nuts and seeds in it. So there are a lot of things we can still get from the store that you can easily find and snack on in between during the day, but we just have to be sort of more intentional and continue to remind ourselves that what is our goal ultimately? What are we trying to accomplish? And give yourself that freedom to explore new food. And I think that's one thing that I like to do, is to different cuisines, different flavors, different spices, and continue to work, but continue to learn to look at the nutritional label of everything that we buy from the grocery store.
Great. So our next question is, should I choose alternative pastas like chickpea pasta or like red lentil pasta over a whole wheat version? I think Dr. Patel is frozen. Let me